Of the landmark Roe versus Wade decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that guaranteed women's reproductive rights for decades. And since the law was overturned in 2022, nearly 24 states have restricted abortion access, including right here in Texas. A new report from the University of Houston reveals Hispanic women in Texas are facing more challenges than others due to the state's near total abortion ban. Joining us live to talk about this report is one of the authors, Dr. Elizabeth Gregory, with the Institute for Research on Women, Gender, and Sexuality. Good morning.
Morning.
So what are some of the major findings in your report?
Well, this data is 2022 fertility data, and it just came out from the CDC. So it's a little earlier than the Dobbs decision because, as you'll remember, in 2021, Texas passed a 6-week abortion ban. So Texas was ahead of the nation in restricting the access to abortion. And so the data for Texas for 2022 is a kind of preview of what we'll be seeing more broadly across the nation in states that had bans in the data that comes out for 2023, because when the ban passes in 2021, you don't start seeing increased births until the next year. So that's what we're seeing now, and that's what this report looks at. It's at the 2022 birth data for Texas, and what we saw was that the fertility rate rose 2% for the state overall. But when you look at it in more detail by race, ethnicity, and age factors, you see a lot of differences across groups. So what we saw was that while it was 2% overall, that actually broke out to a 5% rise among Hispanic women, but a decline among other groups. So there was a small rise among Asian women, less than 1%, but both non-Hispanic Black and non-Hispanic white rates fell in 2022. So that's a big difference. So we're looking at that. And then when we looked at it in more detail, it also was different by age. So we could see that there was a slight raise in the teen birth rate. So teen birth rates had been declining across the nation since 2007. So there's been a 67% decline in the teen birth rate in Texas as well as across the country. But for the first time in 2022, the teen birth rate in Texas went up for the first time in 15 years. So it went up very slightly, but that's a notable change. And it's continued to fall across the country. So what we did see, though, among Hispanic women was that the rates among women 25 and older were much higher. So that 5% rise was largely due to rises among older women, women who may already have children at home. That seemed to be the distinguishing factor, who might have had more difficulty getting access to either contraception or, if they were seeking an abortion, more difficulty traveling due to childcare needs. And particularly that would affect low-income women than other groups. So that was an interesting difference to see. Since
it's interesting, but is it saying that more Hispanic women were having abortions when they were legal? Hard to say,
Not necessarily. It's hard to say because the dynamic is one of who has access now. So if some people were able to leave the state because they had funds and time or just whatever the access, then they would have continued access, whereas some people might not. So it's really hard to make a statement like the one you suggested.
Well, I've been looking into this as the health reporter here. I've been looking into, are we going to see more births of babies with syndromes that could be deadly? Are we going to see more complications from women? And that information is actually difficult to obtain. Were you able to find that in your research?
Well, this data doesn't look at the health situations of those children at this point, though that it might provide it if people were looking in more depth for particular questions. But the greater syndrome that people seem likely to demonstrate as a result of this is increased poverty. So if people were seeking abortions in their families because they were already struggling to feed the children that they had, and might have sought an abortion in order to reduce the strains on their family, then you'll see an increased rates of poverty in families that have
We're
more
going to see
children
that
feed.
affecting families more as their families grow in size. Yeah. Dr. Elizabeth Gregory, thank you so much for joining us this morning and explaining your research. As I mentioned, I'm sure we're going to be talking to you some more. As you implied, we're going to start seeing birth rates increase and things happen just since this ban is somewhat new to our society.
And since we'll only be seeing the Dobbs effect in the 2023 data, so it's already predicted that will have a substantially larger effect, mostly partly because when it expands across multiple states, this is just data where the ban was present in Texas only. But when neighboring states also have bans, people will have farther to travel.
Yeah. Dr. Elizabeth Gregory, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.
You too.